Guys, another CEO Wisdom podcast with Kirsten Toth. She is a CEO and founder at Ekanite Consulting. Had tons of fun talking to Kirsten last time because I discovered inline hockey. First, I didn't know what inline meant because I know roller skating, and I happens that I have played inline myself a good part of my high school days. I would come back from school and play inline with my friends. I didn't even know it was inline, and I checked the video before yesterday, and it's a really cool sport. Kirsten is Team Canada athlete at Canada Inline, and yeah, she started a pretty cool career in ice hockey as well. Played with boys. So last time we talked about Kirsten being open ice and so forth. So it was kind of funny, or not. It's quite traumatic, according to Kirsten. Kirsten, welcome to the pod. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us about the companies you're working on or at right now.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. The companies that I'm working on or at, there's lots. I've been in the startup game for probably the last 8 to 10 years. That's kind of where I'm comfortable, where I enjoy spending my time. I founded Ekanite Consulting probably about 4 years ago. With really, it's one of those accidental things. It was kind of a demand and create the business type of scenario. Fast forward 4 years, I've been involved in probably over 150 startups, in various capacities. The company Ekanite is a staffing agency, technical recruiting. We find software engineers, product folks, everything kind of in between, depending on the need of the client. But that's been fun. We've been predominantly focused in the blockchain space. It's been a tough year for those who are in the blockchain space. So we've kind of revisited older industries that we started out in. VFX, animation, gaming is a big one, and lots more.
Right. Yeah, has it been a tough year for Web3 altogether, just this year or the past couple of years?
Ooh, interesting question. Can of worms. I think the last year has been very tough. I think the previous 2 years ago probably would have been tough. I think everyone kind of knows what their own domestic government situation is, and because of the pandemic, there was a lot of money printed, and I think that created a little bit of a boom, which was a false advertisement, really. But we've seen probably, I would say, a tough year, and we will probably see another 2 more years that will be quite difficult. That's my presumption.
Why is there so much like movement in that industry? Kind of started with FTX, and then now we're seeing Binance. I think Coinbase is there to stay. I think it will continue growing pretty much massively. I think they will win. Brian Armstrong is this amazing wartime CEO. This guy makes so much sense. Bankman Fried, I have my opinions on this guy, but I think I predicted that when these events happened earlier this year, I predicted that CZ was gonna fall, and sure enough, he is gonna fall, like with a 99% certainty. So why is all those rogue waves happening in that industry? What do you think it attracts a specific type of character that's more attracted to money? Is it because it's the Wild West and doesn't have any laws? Why do you think that is?
That's another loaded question, and I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert in the space, but I will. My experience over the last few years. I wouldn't say it's the wild west. I think that with any sort of new technology, and right now we're in the AI era, we see a boom of success, and we see certain groups that want to access whether it's various product functions, or in this case cryptocurrency. We see various groups that attempt to kind of advance their own technology or integrate their own technology with these products. And when it comes to fundraising and when it comes to the VC space, everybody wants a piece of the pie. And so, we see often products that I would say, as we kind of move into a bear market, only the best products are getting funded. If we look at 2 years ago, we have certain products and companies that are getting, ridiculous amounts of funding at astronomical valuations that really don't have a strong product, in my opinion. So it really just depends. I think it's timing, it's the market. But I'm I'm not, again, I'm not going to begin to try to fool everyone that I'm the expert in the space. I think as I would probably tell anyone on my team or anyone of my clients, do your research and get as much information on your own before you kind of make any assumptions.
Right. Your background as an athlete, how is that helping you be a better CEO?
Interesting. Yeah, I think anyone who has been in a team environment or on a team as a kid into your adulthood, university, in your whichever, it's just a different dynamic, I think, and you adopt certain skills working in a team environment that others might not if you haven't played a sport. And I value having athletes on my own team. Actually, there was a point probably about a year and a half ago where 85% of the team played on a sport in that time, which is very rare. As you know, as you're an adult, we had a few pro hockey players, still do, who are playing in and out of the either the AHL or the ECHL. Some of them in Europe, but I value that environment. I'm used to that environment. It's the environment that I kind of came up through and in, and so. Being a leader on a hockey team is quite similar to being a leader in a company. If you can do it well, I think you'll have a successful team that will follow.
And what skills do you need to lead a hockey team? Let's say that it's crunch time, that it's 0 for you, 3 for the other team, and it's third period. Is there 3 periods in hockey? I haven't played in such a long time. 3 periods, right?
There's
3
there's
plays
3
and
periods
2 breaks.
in ice hockey, 3
My
periods in ice
God.
hockey, and 2 periods in inline and roller hockey. That was an
Shame on my
adjustment as
Canadian self. But yeah, let's say we're
well.
at the third period of the game. We're losing. What do you tell your team? What do you tell them in the locker room in that second pause?
I love hockey analogies. I think I would say, well, there's certain things that there's certain traits and characteristics of my team that I really appreciate. Obviously, work ethic is first overall. In tough times, I think we see, there's elite and high performance humans, just like there's elite and high performance athletes. And then there's the rest. There's the people that will give up. And I think, again, the teams and the folks that will be successful are those who can kind of, again, using a hockey analogy, those who can kind of bear down and grip their sticks a little tighter in the last couple minutes of the game and just get it done. I would say that's probably one of the keys to success.
Yesterday, I had a Stoic guy, the guy that wrote the Stoic books on my pod. Stoicism is one of my favorite philosophies. I guess, the team is losing. It's just, hard restart. Let's focus on what we can do, right, on our action plan. And if we do what we're supposed to do without thinking of this negative scenario that we find ourselves in, I think we can rest a pretty solid night after the game. Have you watched what's it called? All or Nothing on Prime? Have you ever watched that documentaries?
I may have, and I'm just skipping on the name here. Can you tell me what it's about?
Yeah, it's Toronto. Well, I mean, they did a bunch
Oh,
of
the Maple Leafs
sports team.
documentary.
Yeah,
Yes.
with Austin
Yes.
Matthews, my man Austin Matthews. And yeah, it's so good. It's so good to see like what the hockey coach tells their team. Have you been doing some hockey coaching yourself?
I am not going to. I believe that some people believe that if you play sports at a high level, you automatically become a good coach. And I'm not
Okay.
going to begin to lie to everyone and say that I would make a good coach. In fact, I know that I wouldn't. So I've been staying away from it.
All right. Well, appreciate the honesty at least. I want to talk yet about Ekanite because you have your a small team, right? Or do you play solo in that one?
Yeah, we have a small team. Again, we had a larger team this time last year, but with the markets, unfortunately, we've had to shrink a bit.
Yeah, I had to shrink back. Well, let me ask you this: have you been automating more stuff this year using AI and ChatGPT to automate work? Have you deployed these playbooks yet?
Absolutely. And I have been a huge advocate for other, business owners who haven't adopted it quite yet. It's a major time saver. And I feel, it's kind of weird. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I want to, I feel like it's a secret still, and it's my advantage. But ultimately it's not, there are so many resources, there's so many different tools and functions that you can use it for. But yes, absolutely, it's been a major time saver. And as the team has gotten smaller, it almost feels like it hasn't. So it's been fantastic.
I think tech in general is a major moat, you know. I think some people would rather die than to experience new technologies. The scary part here, I think, with ChatGPT is that it's so easy to use and to try. But I've been in some situations myself in which I look at the competition, and I'm a techie guy, sort of, and this other guy uses tech, and it's like I don't have the time literally to not to learn, because I will learn, but it's been like 2 or 3 months that this guy has been doing this AI cold email approach, and me, I'm barely catching up, you know. So I think it can be a major moat, especially with baby boomers that are retiring and can't even, you know, log in their Facebook. Yeah, major advantage right there. What trends are you seeing in the hiring market with the economic trends that we're seeing right now? I'm guessing you're still in markets that are somewhat booming. Gaming, I think you mentioned VFX or yeah, virtual effects. What are you seeing this year? Is it how can you compare this market vs 2020, 2021, and 2022?
In terms of how a recruiting agency might utilize ChatGPT, I don't think that we're quite at the point where AI can replace recruiters. And I don't think that there will be that. And I could be wrong. I didn't even know that ChatGPT was going to be a thing 2 years ago. So, um, the human factor, the human connection factor, and the network factor, I think, is probably your greatest strength as a recruiter. I think back to someone that I may have interviewed 6 or 7 years ago, and sometimes I remember that I had a really awesome conversation with that person, and I think about them 7 years later, which is crazy in the world of recruitment, because you interview, 100 candidates a week. As far as the functions that you might use ChatGPT for in recruitment, I think is probably mostly focused in the sales and the marketing space. Um, there are certain plugins and integrations that you can use in different tools and platforms that you might be using that can speed things up a bit. I'm excited to see what happens in this market. I've had my sleepless nights thinking about it as a business owner, a recruiting agency owner, um, wondering what could happen. But ultimately, I think I welcome any technological advancement, and I think as an athlete, someone who is always you always have to adjust, you always have to bounce back. And just back to your comments about losing, I think it's really important to lose sometimes. Not all the time, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it is important to lose, and I think it teaches you a lot, and it teaches you how to win. So
Yeah, for sure. Are we still seeing these very high salaries? Have you been dealing with AI titles, AI folks? For example, I've been inviting a bunch of chief AI officers this year to my AI Wisdom pod. And yeah, this is like an interesting title that you'll see in a lot of Fortune 500 companies, interestingly enough. Have you seen like these ludicrous salaries when it comes to AI folks?
we are seeing, I think the exact numbers are 12 to 19% decrease in salaries in the last year and a half. I was blown away, even as a recruiter, believe it or not, blown away at some of the salary asks. Probably, I would say maybe February of last year, so February 2022, and then even the end of 2021. It was incredible, that some folks would, straight face say, "This is the number that I'm after." Again, as a recruiter, we hear it all, right? We've 100 candidates a day, senior, junior, executive. But we have seen, I think the bear market specifically in blockchain has humbled that industry a bit just in their compensation asks. And again, the numbers are about 12 to 19% decrease. As a recruiter, I mean, you look at your commission sizes, right? So the large salaries, it was a gravy train for a long time, but then also, on the client side, it's not sustainable. So it doesn't make sense for a recruiting agency to place these candidates and get these, massive commissions when you're putting your clients out of business. And so we saw some great struggles from, the unicorn companies, the billion-dollar companies, down to, the startups that were working with about 2-3 million in funding. But as far as, the ML and AI salaries go, we see this happens in every industry, right? You see a wave, the wave peaks at some point, and then it comes down. But we'll see. I mean, again, it's an interesting economic time that we're in, both in the Western world and even out in Europe and Asia. So we'll see what happens.
So let's say that an ML person would ask 500K USD per year. You on your side take 20% out of that. That's 100K USD in your pocket.
Not necessarily, no. If someone is making a $500,000 a year, we call it a package. You wouldn't see, you often wouldn't see a 500,000 base salary. You'd see your stock options included in that, bonuses. That's kind of the full package. So often, I would say probably, and again, for whoever's listening to this, don't quote me, but a competitive salary typically for an AI engineer would probably be somewhere between 150 to 200K base. That's what we're seeing as an average. And depending on the client, the company, and depending on the candidate, there's a lot of flexibility in between. You do have some rock stars in the market that will come in higher, and some folks who might be in a different geographic location, cost of living is less, they probably would come in a bit lower. But again, ultimately it depends, and really in the recruiting game, it's about working with both the company, the client, and the candidate to figure out what works best for both.
What soft skills are you looking for in the most placeable candidates? And would you look in the same skills when it comes to recruiting someone for your inline hockey team?
Oh, which skills would I look for a teammate and a software engineer? I said it earlier in the discussion, but the work ethic is important. And I think, being able to play in a team environment, being adaptable, and being open to learning more, I think those are probably the skills that we see most often sought out from clients. But again, it really depends on the company that you're working with. Everyone has, when we onboard a new client, it's a very personalized approach. We get to know, the hiring team, the leadership team. We want to know exactly what each client is looking for as far as the hard skills and the soft skills, and we typically get it right. I mean, it's a large market now that we're fully remote. You have access to more candidates, but I would say, yeah, probably the adaptability. Everyone's pivoting in this market and in this world, right? In 2023. So someone who is able to do so, able to learn new skills, and able to, bear down, buckle down, work hard. I think that's probably the most important part.
Talking about work ethic, yesterday I interviewed an ex Tesla engineer, and he mentioned to me that he works 16-hour days, and that the jobs that he got after, he was the one pushing the rest of the team to stay longer at work. And I was like, this is an arbitrage opportunity for me. So I would take like X hardcore engineers, whether from Tesla or any company that's really hustling the crap out of themselves, and go to other companies and say, look, you just got that money, you need to push it forward now. You need like more competitiveness in this team and people that are more committed, like freaks. I'm gonna give you those candidates. What do you think about that arbitrage opportunity?
Um, this might be a little controversial. I think that those candidates that are working 16 hours a week are typically men in their 20s and 30s. You know, that kind of eliminates the mothers, often women, often folks who are a bit, you know, of an older demographic. I believe in working hard. And sometimes it means working long, working extra time. You know, sometimes you don't work much. I'm looking at my calendar this week and I'm actually shocked. I'm like, oh, this is probably the lightest week I've had in 3 or 4 years.
Lucky you.
Um, lucky me, right? But I don't know what to do with myself. Anyways, I
Go
think that
meditate.
yeah, I should. I think that I think that as a founder, and I other founders, they often look for people with the founder mentality, the entrepreneurial mindset. I think the reality is you can't expect someone to come into your company and work with your entrepreneurial founder mindset and, you know, grind for 60, 70, 80 hours a week. um, I think that there are times when that is a reality. You know, when you're launching a product, okay, you know, we got 2 weeks until we're launching. We, you know, all hands on deck. We need you to stay late. We need you to do whatever it takes. We've seen successful companies, or companies rather, successfully launch with that mentality. But really and realistically, if you are paying someone for a 40-hour work week and you're expecting, you know, 80 hours out of them, you know, that's when we look at, or when we see uh, software engineers especially just take off. That's why the shelf life of a software engineer these days is, you know, 1.5 to 2 years max. So retention of employees, I think if that's important to you as a leadership team, as a company, as a founder, I think maybe don't hammer out, you know, your employees with 60, 70-hour work weeks. But if they are making really awesome salaries and it's worth it to them, and you know, they are in that place in their life where they can give up those extra hours, um, power to you.
Well, Kirsten, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you?
Where can people find out more about me? Me personally, or my company,
Anything you want.
www.ekanite.io. That's the website. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to chat. If you want to chat sports betting, you can listen to a podcast that's going to roll out shortly in the next couple weeks. Or reach out directly. I'm always open to a conversation.